puts us up there.
Very Christmassy.
Thank you.
10:02.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Marine and Freshwater Quality Task Force. Welcome, everyone. Welcome anyone out there who's watching. A couple things first before we dive into the agenda. I just wanted to introduce Michael Herman. He is our new Select Board Liaison, and welcome him to the committee.
Great.
You may know some of us, but I'll just have people go quickly around and just introduce themselves in case there's someone you don't know, starting with Judith.
Judith Bruce, welcome. Thank you for taking this on.
Carol Etzold.
Ed Hafner, welcome.
Judy Scanlon, welcome.
Rich Levy, welcome again.
Bob Mullen.
Carolyn Kennedy.
Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to Mark Matheson, our previous liaison. The next thing I have, I wanted, last month, Robert couldn't make it. He was traveling, so I asked him to come this month and just introduce himself, Robert Cunningham, just so that some of you may not know him, and I just wanted him to say a few words. We discussed the CPC grant application, and we had voted to approve to write a letter of support for that application. But he's here today just to introduce himself and just say some brief words on the grant application for Cedar Pond. And
Okay.
I do thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Okay, so everyone can hear me easily through my mask? Okay. So, as you know, I'm chair of the Open Space Committee. Our mission in the town is to identify and help the town acquire open space parcels that are of value in the public interest and in the interest of environmental preservation. So that's our mission. We're all amateurs. 3 years ago, I decided to join the committee, and ever since it's been a learning mission, if you will, with great success in acquiring 12 Peck's Way for the town to really protect the collar, the entrance collar from the Namaquite River into Cedar Pond, or into Aries Pond. This year, it's been somewhat of a struggle to finally close on 66 Port of Nimicut, which is an important property that will join the town's Christian property with Orleans Conservation Trust, Zekel property. And I mention that because I'll have something more to say about it in a minute. So I'm here today to really talk about this year's application from the Open Space Committee to the CPC. And I think I have to characterize the application as a small financial application with a big import. The import is that if the town is successful in a portion of the application and the Open Space Committee is successful in another portion, then we will really be helping to protect the wetlands at Cedar Pond and the Atlantic white cedar trees within that wetlands. So the application is really in two parts. The first part requires no money from us because the town this past year intended to take 6.48 acres of land which have two known owners and one unknown owner for a parcel. No taxes are being collected on the three parcels totaling the 6.8 acres. And the intent is for the town to take those 3 parcels in a tax taking. It's a procedure through which the town council will draft an article for town warrant this spring, and that article will, in essence, ask the town voters if they're willing to accept these 3 parcels, 6.8 acres, by a taking. So no money will pass hands for that transaction, but it's a legal way to transfer ownership into the town, and very important. So for those 3 tax-taking articles, the Open Space Committee has a simple role to complete before, let's say, the end of January, which is to commission and then receive an independent professional appraisal of those lots. So we've commissioned that appraisal and are in the process of working through the appraisal. There have been a few glitches, one of which is to have the appraiser actually walk the entire the entire property, which requires good rubber boots and a strong walking stick. Oh, also clippers. So that's part one of the 2-part group here at Cedar Pond. So again, no dollar implication to the town except for the fees for the appraisal itself, which are minimal, and whatever fees our town council needs to be compensated by. The second part of this application is the one that is important to us for the purposes of this committee. We really would like to have the committee's endorsement of the application, because what it does is, through a potential purchase of simply 2 properties, 6 and 10 Cedar Pond Lane, we could complete a nice package of most of the land in that wetlands moving towards Cedar Pond itself. So the 2 lots that we are specifically seeking approval from the Conservation Protection, the CPC, and then from the Select Board, is simply to have permission to purchase those two lots. Now, this is a public forum, but the dollar values are no secret to anyone who is interested. The parcels themselves are only assessed together at about $2,900, a tiny sum. So the offer from the town would probably be somewhere around that figure, perhaps above. But again, it's a small sum with a big import, because it gives the town many more degrees of freedom in how we approach the preservation of the 5 lots that we're talking about. So that appraisal has been completed for the 2 lots, the specific appraisal for the 2 lots that we intend to purchase. What has not happened, and this is very important, is there's no guarantee that the owners may wish to part with those properties. On the positive side for the town, neither property is buildable. They are true wetlands. And there's been a change that I didn't realize took place, but apparently at least 3 or 4 years ago, the town stopped conferring on all landowners the right to have a residence parking permit at Nauset Beach. And also ceased allowing an off-road permit to use Cattleman's Pass as a, quote, resident of the town. So that privilege is no longer granted to anyone outside of Orleans who happens to own land in town. So there's a good chance that the owners of these two lots, unbuildable and conferring no privilege to the owners in terms of town access, this position may favor us in future talks with the owners of those properties. So that's all I really have to say, except for the vision piece. It would be wonderful to have the additional 7.58 acres for the town at Cedar Pond, and in so doing, to protect a very nice Atlantic white cedar grove, a rare species anywhere, and also on the Cape. That would be very good. And I was reminded by Bob Prescott about a year ago, we were talking about some low tide land that the Audubon, that Wellfleet Audubon acquired maybe 15 years ago. And people asked Bob Prescott, well, why are you bothering to acquire low tide land above the Wellfleet Audubon property? He said, owning that land confers responsibilities and privileges to us and sovereignty over the land. And he said, had we not purchased that, we would have, in essence, participated in the wipeout of horseshoe crabs, who really like that area as a nesting area and are also endangered. They end up being used sometimes for baits, and they need to be preserved. So the same is true, at the very least, with the Cedar Pond properties. Preserving land that is, for most practical purposes, building impossible, we are still preserving an incredibly valuable natural environment. So finally, the vision. I've spoken directly with Judy and Carolyn about this, and that the three of us have waded through a good bit of the parcels on a very muddy, slushy day, but it was important, and I think Carolyn and Judy were both compelling me to continue moving on in the wetlands when it seemed like a good idea to stop. So I want to thank them for that and for their help. So the vision, which some of you have, certainly Judy and Carolyn, is that at some point beyond that time when I'd be chair of the Open Space Committee, that makes no difference. If we set in motion the ownership of these 5 parcels, then sooner or later it will happen that some future recreation committee proposal or combined recreation and open space proposal will act to apply to develop an elevated walkway, an elevated boardwalk right down through Cedar Pond, right through the wetlands, down to the banks of Cedar Pond. And it would be fabulous for the town of Orleans. Now, linking that with what I said previously about 66 Port Anunket, it's also a keystone property there because it makes possible a link between Orleans Conservation Trust property and town property. And in that link, there's, again, another possibility, let's say within the next 3 years, of having an elevated walkway over a wetland area between the Zekel property, Orleans Conservation Trust, and the town property. So that's sort of a ambitious vision, but ambitious visions, if pursued over a 3-year period, let's say, can result in a gift of access to the people of the town of Orleans. That's all I have.
That's quite a bit, and it was very informative, and I really thank you for going into it and sort of laying it out that way. I've certainly had a vision for years of a similar elevated boardwalk like they have at Fort Hill through the Cedar Swamp there, and how important this would be for education, you know. We'll see what happens. But I really hope that this is a successful effort. I hope that you get the funding that you have requested, because I think it's a very worthy acquisition, absolutely. And we're certainly familiar, this committee, with all the efforts that the town has put in past years for improving the ecological health of Cedar Pond and the White Cedar Swamp, the herring and everything else. It's all part of the town's management plan, so it also fits nicely with the town's management plan and the efforts moving forward. So I think it's keystone for many reasons, I think. Does anyone have any questions for Robert?
I had one thing I didn't quite understand. You mentioned there are 2 properties there, number 6 and number 10.
Correct.
Didn't you also mention a third property, or no?
There is a third abutting property that's closest to Locust Road on Cedar Pond Lane. However, that property is currently in use. It's half upland and half wetland. And the abutting owner prefers to keep that property to store a boat or other things. So that third property, which is at 6, which I believe is officially at 610, at about 2 Cedar Lane, is not going to be pursued.
I was trying to find I did provide the map, you know, the attachments showing the parcels at the last meeting. Do you have?
So you mentioned the 2 parcels are 6.4 acres, but just here at the end, you mentioned 7.5 or something.
Okay, the 6.48 includes the 3 properties which are have that label pending town tax taking. That's
Okay.
6.8 acres.
So that was the one.
The 2 properties at 6 and 10 Cedar Pond Road comprise 1.1 acres. So that gives us a total of 7.58 acres.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions for Robert?
I just wanted to say that previously the committee sloshed our way through there. To me, there's 2 really important points, which probably are in minutes back 3 years or more. One is the biological community that's there. Atlantic white cedars are quite rare and occur in certain specific places up and down the coast. There's only 2 others in town that I know of. And there are specific species that live among them that live nowhere else. So it is a habitat and an environment for some species. And secondly, there's road drainage, which goes in there from a significant piece of Main Street, Route 6, and so on. And so it serves as a biological filter for all of that as it goes towards Cedar Pond. And there's a lot of spongy sphagnum moss in there amongst the trees and so on. So it really is a filter that we could not pay for. It would cost us millions of dollars to replace it. And there's no space to do that, so.
And we'd never do as good a job as nature did.
Exactly. So nature is doing its thing, and in this case, doing us a big favor, because to replace that same filtration system someplace else, and I don't know where we would put it, is priceless.
Yeah, very good point.
That's why have pursued this over a number of years to. And because of the nature of it being a soppy, soggy wetland, it is unbuildable. So let the trees be.
Yeah, it's also one of the major sources of fresh water to the pond, too.
Yes. Filtered.
Filtered, yes. Well, thank you so much again, Robert. I hope you have a lovely holiday. I hope your foot feels better.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you. And we will get a letter of support off.
That would be very much appreciated.
Yeah.
I think it's always important to see consensus among relevant committees. And having that letter attachment would be very important for the CBC application. Thank you.
I'll contact you later about who to direct that letter to, specifically.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So,
Robert?
Robert,
Robert?
Your you'd be cold.
You would have figured that out when you get out there.
Winter is definitely here.
Yeah, would have happened.
Yes.
I didn't think there was much. I was going to say, you'll never read my scribble.
If you need a boot, let me know.
Robert. I don't know if I need to write a
You need
letter to
boots for your foot,
CPC
let me
and the
know. I
select
have
board,
some.
or
Okay.
For my own
I just
problem.
need some clarification on that. Okay, I kept the agenda short this time because I figured this is going to take a while to go through the Baker Pond Management Plan and Diagnostic Assessment, the draft final report. There's different ways to approach this. I don't know if anybody wants to go through it page by page, or whether you want to just do general comments and questions right now and then figure out where we need to really focus on. It's really at your pleasure. I will take some direction on that, on what the members feel is easiest.
So for me, I went back over the report again, and it is, again, it is a very complex, to
Yes,
say the least, report. I think it feels backwards for me to try to comment now. It would be much easier and better to hear Ed's presentation, to be able to have some give and take, to then provide some input as to where we think it might need clarification or modification before being posted and published.
okay, the
So
one,
I know we had this on the agenda for today, and it's not that I'm opposed to it, but I read it again. I tried to focus on it, I read it again, and then I said, you know what, I need the presentation and the interchange before I make anything that resembles an intelligent comment.
although I think it's important that we provide any comment, or well, any questions that we might have ahead of the presentation so that he can be sure to address those questions. So if there were any things from a first read-through or a second read-through that really were confusing or major questions, it'd be nice to send those ahead of their presentation next month. So I don't know if anyone had any.
I've got something for that.
You got something? All right, let it rip.
As I look at the data analysis
Mm-hmm.
for each of the factors being measured, which are very good and very clear, and they give us the averages for the 20 years of data, or whatever it is, month by month. But for no factor except SecuDisc, is there any analysis of the change of any one of those factors over all those years?
You're,
And my concern specifically is temperature. We know that things are warming up. And we know that temperature affects so many of the processes that go on in the pond. And there's nothing in here looking at factors longitudinally over years. Over seasons, within every year, yeah.
well, we don't monitor in the winter, so,
But still, the ones we monitor,
Right.
we've got the whole monitoring time, averages, but nothing comparing one year to another.
so you would like to see something that depicts more changes over time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, to me, that's a glaring omission, especially since we know that looking at historical data and its implications is not a blueprint for the future.
Well, I know that they are looking at changes over time, that's a key thing. It's just, it would,
Tell us.
right. So I think that's an easy thing for them to address.
I mean, I know they obviously have the information.
Oh,
They've got the data.
It's just a
Yeah, the
question
data's there,
of
and that's one of the
presenting it.
key things, is to look at changes over time. That's how you know whether things are getting worse or getting
Exactly.
better. And they've already said it's gonna be, there are gonna be issues by, what, 2023, I
23.
believe it was?
Yeah.
So that's a very helpful question.
So I would put that together with the depth of the anoxic zone in the bottom.
See, among other things.
Yeah, but some longitudinal data. The other thing I tried to convince Ed to do, and I don't know whether it fell on a deaf ear or he didn't want to do any more writing, but to me, just like Cedar Pond and trying to sell people on why we need to buy a bunch of swamp, we need to, people don't look at a pond for its chemistry. They look at it for certainly clarity, if they're going to swim in it. But the plants, the animals, and so on that they enjoy seeing in that pond, birds, et cetera. And so when the section in here where they do the survey of the bottom, looking to see if there's any mussels there, and it mentions a number of plants that were found, but it never tells you what they are. So I would like to see a characterization of the plant community in that pond. Both the immediate surroundings of the pond, which we know varies because the depth varies, but also I think you're going to sell this package more on selling the biological community that's there, which people can see, rather than on water chemistry. Make sense to anybody else?
Yep.
Yeah, one comment I've made in the past is that it is also habitat, speaking of Cedar Pond, but Baker Pond is also habitat for rare species such as the Plymouth gentian and the sundew. Years ago, Jenny Wood, who was a previous conservation
Right,
administrator.
you mentioned that at the last meeting, yeah.
Yeah, she did a vegetative survey of the shoreline.
Do we have any access to that?
Oh, yeah, well, it's in a report, so yes, we do, but that was probably 2000, I don't
It was
know,
a long time ago.
2002, 2003. That
Yeah.
was a DEM Lake and Pond grant that the town received.
Yeah,
But that was done because those species are a species of concern in Massachusetts, and
And the Plymouth gentian is still there. At least it was as of
Yes,
this
it
year.
is.
Any
Right.
low water year, we have seen it at
Right.
Baker.
yeah.
although, you know, and I've had this discussion in the past with Mr. Eichner, and, I mean, this is a water quality report, so they don't delve into a lot of the vegetation and all that, but I understand what you're saying about what people can connect to and relate to. So we'll certainly take another run at that. Yes, Bob?
I have some, I guess, overall, maybe questions, comments. In my experience and practice in environmental reporting, it's a standard of practice to include all, well, laboratory data reports, statistical analyses, if you state that there is, or if it is stated that there is a trend, an increasing trend, like there is supposedly in total phosphorus. It's, those analyses need to be appended so that they can be reviewed and become part of the record. It's also very important to have any data analyses from laboratories as part of the record for the town, because in the future, the town may use those analyses as for other purposes, or, in combined purposes over multiple ponds and things like that. So, and it also makes the report much easier to understand if you can look and see the analyses and the computations. Because I was like lost in the water
Are
balance.
you asking for about raw data or
Yes,
raw data?
So we do have all of that raw data, the
Yep.
analyses for the 2 per year
Right.
quote for our monitoring. I
Yeah.
don't know whether, that's a good point, Bob, I don't know whether they share, when they do their more intensive analyses, where they do the frequent sampling the year or two prior to their management report, I don't know whether they share that data, whether we have that on file, whether they've done that for all of the ponds, but you're right, that's a very good point, we should have that.
and it's all,
That
there's,
shouldn't reside just with ASMES, that should be with the town, it's
yeah,
our
it's
data.
it's the town's data.
Yeah, we
and,
bought it.
And also it allows someone that's interested in looking at it to
Exactly.
look at the laboratory quality control, quality assurance.
Absolutely.
And they do send us that.
We do get that, so
It's
would
part-
that be appended to
it's a
this
giant-
report?
It's a giant spreadsheet, and they do send it to George Meservey. The same for our estuary data, we get it every year.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
And
But there's special reports too, Judy? I've never seen that.
I've
I
never
know we
seen
get
the data on one of these.
I've never seen the
Oh, yeah.
data for
pa-
one of
Well,
these.
it's it comes out under the PALs, but it includes our spring, and we get it every year, as far as I can remember.
For the spring and August. But again, when
Right.
they're doing an analysis of a particular pond, they do a 1 to 2 year, very detailed analysis, where they go in and do much more frequent water quality samples, where they take the benthic samples, if you will, the bottom sediment samples, all of that water quality analysis and chemistry. I've never seen those reports come into the town. I don't think we get them. I think the only things we get are the ones that we sample and send to them, and they then
Yes,
send us back the results.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, but we don't get what they're doing.
Well, certainly
That's-
under that contract, they had to collect, to fill in the data gaps, they had to go out and do additional water quality
Right.
sampling, core samples, sediment incubations, all that.
But we never see that.
But we
Okay.
never see that. We should
And
have that on
That's the point he's
file.
making.
Yeah, and also, I don't know, and I think I might have asked this last time and not followed up on it, but where to find the contract for the work with the town?
That would be George Meservey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just go to his, I could go to
That's
his.
extremely difficult.
He's the contracts administrator for the
Yeah,
town.
but it's very, and usually a standard of practice is to state what your contracted scope of work is,
Yeah.
and then any deviations from that scope or, contract modifications, just to show that what what was contracted for was completed. And it's also a benefit to the author of the report to say, this is what I was hired for, this is what I did, this is where the differences were, and, you know, these are the significant,
Speak to George, but that,
Okay.
you're going
Yeah.
to find that very,
He has that.
He has that
very
information.
kind of
It's
like
public-
punching jello.
It's public information, because the money has to be.
You are not going to find a very clearly defined scope of service
I-
for each of these
I don't know
reports.
if I agree with that, but he should be very helpful, and, you know, this is money that, of course, it goes into the town budget for
Yeah.
these things, so it's an open process, so you should be able to see the actual contract that was signed, what they proposed, what was signed, because it's in the budget, they have to, you know. But George, I mean, I can ask for you, or you can go right down there after the meeting and
I'll see if I
ask him
can.
yourself.
Yeah, well, it would just be great.
He's
so
very
I-
helpful.
Can you take that as an action item
Sure.
for you? And I'll put that in here.
You got me on that one, Rich. huh?
I did. I was waiting.
Rich is really good at this.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's good to know that, and know whether or not, you know, you can get access
Sure.
to it. And I think the scope of work, you know, I don't think the committee, I don't know if it's our job to check it or not, but
No,
If we're reviewing and commenting
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
report, I think that's part of a responsibility.
yeah, usually our interest is, was it funded? You know,
Yeah.
is this work going to be funded?
But also to Carolyn's point, so maybe the scope of work in the future should have more focus on, you know, some of these other pieces like the temperature profiles over the years and that thing in particular.